Church, we're fighting in a battle that is not flesh and blood. Our enemy is not the sinner. Our enemy is not the lukewarm Christian. Our enemy is not the backbiter. Our enemy is not the one that wants to sow discord among the brethren. Our enemy is not that one that wants to persecute the church. Our enemy is not that one that wants to pour out and badmouth the church and the things of God. They're not our enemies. And our enemy is that one is Satan, that prince of the darkness of the air, that one that's got those principalities and those powers. Many of those are being used by that enemy, but flesh and blood is not our enemy. It's not for us to hate the sinner. It's not up to us to hate a person because, or to come against an individual, to lash out against people. God teaches us that we must love the unlovable. We must reach out to the ones that have made themselves enemies. Church, we're wrestling not against flesh and blood, but we're wrestling against that devil that's constantly throwing those fiery darts of the enemy. Do you have on your armor tonight? Do you have on that helmet? Do you have on that breastplate? Do you have your feet shod? Do you have the Word of God in your hand? Do you have the righteousness of God in your heart? Do you have the knowledge of God in your mind? Are you ready to engage in this battle? Well, above all, we must take the shield of faith. We preached a series. There were several of us preachers that may have been a watch night service, I don't remember, but I was assigned to preach on the shield. They had a young man up there, and they had that young man decked out in his armor. They did a fine job. They got, an armor there. He had his helmet on, he had his breastplate on, he had a sword in his hand. And he had this shield. The shield would have been great for a homecoming plate. I've always said I'm going to make me a homecoming plate, just an oversized plate to take the homecoming and fill it up. It would have been great for those potluck dinners. It would have been wonderful that, but he had this little shield. And each one they got up there and they preached and they made reference to his helmet and they made reference to his breastplate. But when I got up there, I think I might have hurt the little guy's feelings, but it wasn't personal to him. It was that shield that they gave him. I grabbed his shield and I said, but tonight we're going to talk about the shield of faith. The Bible tells us that above all we must take the shield of faith. But son, I'm sorry to report to you that this shield's not going to work. And I flung that thing across there. That shield was not sufficient. Back in that day, when they went into battle, when they spoke about that shield, when those warriors went out to battle, it wasn't just some little shield there about the size of a plate, but they had a shield that stood tall enough that warrior, that he could go down when those darts begin to come in, and he could bow down behind that shield, and it would fully protect him. It was a shield big enough. It was a shield big enough to protect that he could take and put it up, because many times they would just shoot those arrows, those fiery darts, and they begin to rain in upon them. He can put that shield up, or he can put that shield to the side. Church, the wonderful thing about our faith is it will surround us. If we've got that shield of faith above all, take that shield of faith, put it in the Bible, and begin to bring those fiery darts. Take that shield and begin to put it, take that faith and begin to put it to the Word of God. 1 John 5 and 4 says, for whatsoever is born of God overcometh the world. And this is the victory that overcometh the world, even our faith. It's faith that's going to help us to overcome. It's faith that's going to help us win this battle. I'm fighting a battle that I know that I'm going to win. I guess you can say that I looked ahead. I've already read the back of the book. I've already went to the back, and I know that when the smoke of the battle clears away, when it's all said and done, when this battle is finished, when this battle is over with, he said that all of those that are on God's side, they're going to be a victorious people. There's coming a day that he's going to separate the sheep from the goats. There's coming a day that he's going to separate the wicked from the righteous. There's coming a day that he is going to say, enter in, my good and faithful servant, into the joys of the Lord. And it's not going to be those that refuse to put on their armor. It's not going to be those that refuse to take up their shield of faith. People say, Brother J.D., I don't understand why I'm going through what I'm going through. It seems like every temptation is hit me. It seems like I give in to everything. It seems like everything's falling apart in our house. It seems like our finances are falling apart. It seems like this and it seems like that. Have you took that that shield of faith? Church, where's our faith? Where's our confidence in God? Do we understand what faith really is? Hebrews 11:1 says, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And I know I shared this a couple weeks ago, but many today have hope. And they mistake it for faith. They say that I believe God can do it. I believe God can heal my body. I believe the Scriptures say that He bore those stripes at Calvary for our healing. I believe that God can make a way where there seems to be no way. And I just believe, and they mistake that with faith. That's not faith. That's hoping. That's saying, I hope God will do it. His Word says He will do it, and I hope that He'll do it for me. I just hope, and I just believe that God is able to do it. My hope is that He will bring my healing. Church, it's time that we reach out and take hold of nothing until it becomes something. Not saying I believe, but saying I know. I know without a shadow of a doubt that this Word is true, and I stand upon this Word that He bore those stripes for my healing. I claim my healing. I claim the blood that is shed for me. I've got my shield of faith, and no matter what the devil brings my way, my faith is going to see me through. My faith is going to bring me out. When it may seem like that help of salvation is not enough, when it seems like that righteousness is not enough, when it seems like all that other is not enough, I know that above all I've got the final piece of the puzzle. I've got the final piece of the armor. I've reached out and I've grabbed hold of faith, and when the fire darts begin to come, as I know they will, I've got the faith to block it off. I've got my faith. You see a warrior of God, and you'll see them with a shield. A shield of faith. If we can see in the spiritual, we can look around and see some of these saints of God that's been around for a long time. If we can see their armor, we may see chinks and dinks and dinks in their armor and their shield. We may look and we see their armor there, and we see fiery darts holding that shield. Fiery darts just piercing that shield. Many today are walking around and they've got darts in their neck and their chest and their head. They're walking around because they didn't use the shield of faith. They don't know how they're going to make it another day. They don't know how they're going to make it through. When you have the faith, he said, Brother Jimmy, where do you get that I've got the faith? Because he said that he has dealt to each man the measure of faith. He said it is standard issued in the armor of God. God's made a way for it. He didn't tell us we had to go out and buy this armor. He didn't tell us we had to go out and buy the shield. It's standard issued. He's given it to us. If we're a child of God, if you're a child of God, you have a shield of faith. If you knelt down to that altar and prayed and asked Him in your heart, when you knelt down to that altar, He said, here you go, sir. Here you go, ma'am. Here's your helmet. Here's your breastplate. Here's your feet shod. Here's your word, your sword, and here's your shield. As God began to clean us up and wash us, He began to put that armor on it. And if you say this evening, I'm a child of God, don't tell me you can't make it. Don't tell me the temptation's too much for you. Don't tell me that the trial's too hot for you. Don't tell me that the power is hurt too much. Don't tell me that you can't make it through this hour, because you've got the same shield that these saints of old went through these battles and said, you've got that same shield of faith. Pick it up and use it. Pick it up and fight off every fire coming in it. Resist the devil and he will flee from you. In my church, we above all pick up that shield of faith. Romans 3:24 through 31 says, being justified freely by His grace through redemption that is in Christ Jesus, whom God has set forth to be a propitiation through faith in His blood, to declare His righteousness for the remissions of sins that are past, through the forbearance of God to declare, I say at this time, His righteousness, that He might be just and the justifier of him which believeth in Jesus. Where is boasting then? Is it excluded? By what law? Of works? Nay, but by the law of faith. Therefore we conclude that a man is justified by faith without the deeds of the law. Is He the God of the Jews only? Is He not also of the Gentiles because we're the Gentiles. Yes, and the Gentiles also, seeing as one God, which shall justify the circumcision by faith and uncircumcision through faith. There's only one God, and He will justify everyone by faith and through faith. Verse 31 says that we make void the law through faith. God forbid. Yea, we establish the law. Our faith does not put the law aside. Our faith does not give us a license to do whatever we want to and say, well, I got the shield of faith, I'll be all right. But that shield of faith makes us want to be engaged in the battle, wants us to make sure that we're putting that armor to work, that we're using the sword of the Spirit, that word of God, that sword of the Spirit, it says that it's quick, it's powerful, and it's sharper than any two-edged sword. That sword of the Spirit is our offense and our defense, because it cuts going in and it cuts coming out. That sword of the Spirit, we need it. It pierces the heart of man. That helmet of salvation, we've got to have our salvation, for He said, how can we escape if we neglect so great the salvation, that breastplate of righteousness? He said that we must put on His righteousness. We must have the righteousness of God. We need every bit of the armor. We need to live by every oracle of God, by every command of God. This shield of faith is just as grace. It's not giving us a license to sin and say, well, it's faith is enough. But that shield is there when the battle gets too hot. That's right. That's right. That shield of faith is there when the onslaught of the enemy, when temptation is too much. Because God said He never put more on us than what He could bear. What we could bear. He knows our loneliness. God did not give us the shield of faith, that great big shield those warriors had. He didn't give us that shield, this sword to come back. I've got faith. Well, come on, brother, we need you to help us fight. If I go, stay back here. There's no cowards in the army of the Lord. That's right. There's no cowards in the army of the Lord. He said, many are called, but few are chosen. Many are called, but few are chosen. The chosen ones are those ones that take their helmet, the rest of their armor, take their shield, their sword. Where are you going? I'm going to the front line. Warriors like David, that put on the armor of Saul, and he said, Saul, I have not yet proved this armor. I'm going with what I know. And I'm going to the front line. Church, it's time that we don't hide behind our faith. Don't use our faith as a crutch and our shield of faith to say, I'm going to hide behind here. I'm just going to wait for the Lord to come back. And I don't want anything to happen to me. And I just want to stay back here. It's time God is looking for some warriors of Christ that, yes, they have their shield of faith. Yes, they have their faith. But that faith is not an excuse for them to say, I'm not going to fight. That faith is not an excuse for them to say, I'm not even going to engage. God is looking for some folks that will engage in the battle. God is looking for some warriors. He said the kingdom of heaven suffered. He said from the time of John the Baptist till now, the kingdom of heaven suffered violence, and the violent take it by force. Church, it's time that we get engaged in the battle and go forth in the battle and know that God's given us an armor for a reason. And He's given us that armor to fight, but He's given us that shield of faith when the battle gets too hot.